warroomsports.com. Get that mobile app.
Basketball fans, what's going on out there? Welcome to another edition of Court Vision, brought to you as always by War Room Sports in conjunction with Sports Kings. We're a little short this evening on roundtable members.
That's what she said.
We're gonna get a little three-man weave on. We got Frank from Sports Kings with us.
Yo, I'm like the Evelyn Lozada of sports fans. Yo, good job, Nets, but let's go Giants.
We got Jimmy the Blueprint from War Room Sports.
What's up, War Room Nation? Rest in peace to Kerry Von Erich and Free Beanie Siegel.
And I'm your boy Devin from War Room Sports. Let's talk about the conference finals in the NBA. It's all come down to four teams. That's the Thunder versus the Spurs in the West. And, of course, we have the matchup that people have basically been waiting on all season, the Pacers versus the Heat in the Eastern Conference. I'm not sure if this matchup has the same allure that it had, at the beginning of the season when the Pacers' whole thing was we want to get home court advantage because had we gotten these guys at home in Game 7 last season, we would have beaten them, yada, yada, yada. So let's start with that one. The Pacers and the Heat. Is there anything that you guys can make of this series, or are the Heat about to just go to the NBA Finals for the, third time in a row?
Fourth time, right?
Fourth time in a row.
Yo, listen, man. Funds on hold. Franklin Oscar Hatchet. The bottom line is FOH. I picked the Heat even before the Pacers had the season that they had, and now, I've never seen someone back into the Eastern Conference Finals, but
the East is weak.
It seems like when they win, they lose. The Pacers are not playing their best basketball. They may have peaked too soon. We see this in all sports. Sometimes teams, it's all about the hottest team, not the best team all the time. And they seem to have peaked early in the season before they brought Evan Turner to mess up chemistry and put Bynum on that team and got rid of Granger. Maybe we underestimated what Granger's impact was on that team. We knew that was Paul George's, basketball dad, but their chemistry hasn't looked the same. They look lethargic playing. Their offense looks like the motion has stopped. It's very difficult to watch. Someone told me, the Pacers play the way everybody talks about how the Spurs play. They're boring, and it's tough to watch basketball that way. And I don't know, man, but I picked the Heat in the beginning of the season. I'm going to pick the Heat again.
I don't really think the Pacers I don't think they've changed that much as far as, offense is concerned. They were already like that even before the trade. But what they did, was strap up on the defensive end, and you see that now in the playoffs, but you only see it in spurts, when it absolutely has to be done. You see them, get into the Wizards jerseys a little bit during the series, and then they fade away, and the Wizards come out with a blowout, and then in that Game 6 finale, in the second half, they went back to quote-unquote Pacer basketball, and they D'd up and got out of that series. But like Jimmy said, it's like they just don't seem the same. So even when they win, your confidence in this bunch isn't where it was, prior to the season when you thought, man, if they do get that number 1 seed and, they meet Miami again, it could be interesting. A lot of people we didn't necessarily say they were going to go out and beat Miami, but the interest level just back then for me, it seemed like we were in for something epic. And we still could be, because I still think that the Miami Heat bring out the best in the Pacers, but the last time we saw that was near the end of the regular season. So we'll see how it stacks up, come Sunday. For me, while I still want to hold some hope in the Pacers, because you guys know I have throughout the playoffs, I still got to say Miami in 6. So.
Oh, I didn't give my games. I'm sorry, Frank. I mean to cut you off. I just want to say I have the same way. I have 6 games. I think the Pacers will win 2 games. Just because, Miami's going to take 2 games off. But no, and what I meant by offense, not that they had a powerful offense, but you're watching them play, they look lethargic. They don't seem to make great cuts anymore. It's like they're going half pace. But how are you going half pace when you're not playing that great basketball? It's like they're on cruise control when they shouldn't be.
And I've always been a David West fan, but if they have to rely on David West to shoot 26 times in a game for them to, be in it or to win, I don't know if that's the formula that you're looking for. Frank, what do you think?
I mean, it's a credit to David West that he took the team on his back and just said, "Listen, we're going to the Eastern Conference Finals." But it's a discredit to the entire Pacers team that they can let David West be like, "All right, I'm going to take out the offensive load here, guys. I'm going to handle this." Yeah. Logically, I agree with everything that everybody said. Like, it makes complete sense to me. Like, if we're just talking from what we've seen the past couple of weeks, there's no way you can't pick the Heat to win this series. But the only curveball to me is it seems like maybe the Pacers have been looking forward to this Heat series for about 2 months now, and that they've just been zombieing through the entire postseason. Right. So now that they're here, I'm thinking maybe we'll see a different team. I don't know if that's true. That's more of a gut feeling than anything else. It just seems like this Pacer team the entire season has been waiting for this moment. So I think they're very fortunate to actually have made it here. I think they could have lost because I think last series was more about what the Wizards didn't do than it was about what the Pacers did do. I think the Wizards just fell apart late and they were a young team and they just didn't have the capability to score when it mattered. But I think now that they've actually made it, fortunately for them, I think we might see a different team. The only curveball is that the Pacers are so dependent on Paul George now, more so than ever. And I think LeBron James can lock up Paul George in the 7-game series, no question. I think last year what you saw was more, especially since last year Paul George had success against him, I think LeBron's going to take that personally this series. I also have the Heat. I want to say Heat in 5, but I'm gonna also give, because like Jimmy said, the Heat sometimes they get lethargic. They really don't care. Sometimes.
You said all that and still pick the Heat, though.
Yeah, I know. But I think the Pacers, the Pacers will win one game, and then the Heat will give one game to them. And then Heat in 6.
See, and also, we're talking about how the Pacers have, they may have been sleepwalking because they had this series on their mind. On the flip side of that, Miami, not necessarily because they were, focusing on the Pacers like the Pacers were focusing on them, but Miami's road has just been a little bit easier, so they could kind of coast through. I mean, they got some resistance from Brooklyn as we expected, but it still only went 5 games. So I think they probably still have that chip on their shoulder because everybody assumed that this Pacer team this season was going to come in and challenge them for the Eastern Conference title. So I think they're going to gear up as well. And at times, you might see like a LeBron James and Dwayne Wade play at, levels that we've seen them play before, but we haven't necessarily seen them play lately, besides the 49-point game by LeBron. We might see that 2 or 3 times. So
I just want to say I thought that Frank was getting ready to say that the Pacers rather would want to have like a one shining moment. Like they looked all season for this, and it was going to be like,
they might though. Yeah. They might. I'm not ruling it out. Was what I'm saying. I think it's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if the Pacers win 7 games and even it probably would not shock me if the Pacers won this series. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked.
I'm in that boat as well because I do believe what Frank said. Like the Pacers have just been putting all their eggs into this Miami basket.
Man.
They weren't focused enough in these other series and down the stretch of the season, but I still got Miami in 6. But speaking, Jimmy, of one shining moment, we've been referencing something Frank said like 3-4 weeks ago on every show since then, and that's about the Thunder possibly having their quote-unquote UConn moment if they were to get past the Memphis Grizzlies. They've done that. They've gotten past the Clippers, and it's there for the taking. However, the news just came down today that because of the calf injury that he suffered against the Clippers, Serge Ibaka is expected to basically be done for the rest of the postseason. So this is a series that I've been going back and forth with all day, trying to get prepared for this show, and it's difficult for me, and the Serge Ibaka injuries just made it that much more difficult for me to call. So, Frank, with Ibaka gone, is it possible that the Thunder are still in line for their one shining minute, or is it?
It's definitely possible. I think this series is going to be incredibly close because anytime you got 2 of the top 10 players in the league, you got a chance. I mean, that's just science. That's just math, the basic math. 2 + 2 = 4. In basketball, 2 top 10 players give you a chance to win any game in a 7-game series.
Right.
That being said, I got the Spurs. I think I would have had the Spurs even with Ibaka in 7.
Right.
But I just think the Spurs. I'm not really a big believer in like team of destiny and all that, but like to come back from last year's moment, that Game 6 moment, and to be here again, I just think the Spurs just have that extra motivation. Like that Game 6 was the worst thing I've ever seen as a sports fan. Like that's like probably the most disappointing moment I've ever seen a single team go through in my history of watching sports. And to come all the way back to have the season that they had to be right here, I don't think they're going to let it slip again. I got the Spurs in 7.
Frank, that Game 6, Jimmy harps on it all the time, and we talk about it. It's one of those situations as a sports fan, you're like, thank God I'm not a San Antonio Spurs fan, because that's the type of moment that would make a diehard fan maybe go out and play in traffic a little bit just to see what might happen.
Hey, put it like this,
Frank.
Frank.
That's terrible, man.
Frank, put it like this. I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I think that what happened against the Baltimore Ravens was worse than that. And guess what? They came back the next year, had a better season, and went to the bowl and got embarrassed again. So it wouldn't shock me if the Spurs did that. But with that being said, I think it's amazing that they made it this far because, I agree. That's one of the worst. That's one of the worst losses I've ever seen.
That's the 1 seed again. Too.
And when your coach, who's considered a legendary coach, made the mistake that he made. I mean, the whole thing. It also feels sad for OKC. Now, they still have to play the series, but losing Ibaka is big. Going against the Spurs, it's crazy because what I was thinking about is this. Let's just say that, OKC loses. And, they continually have this bad luck in the playoffs and they lose. Like, history will just say...
I know where he's going. I know where he's going.
Yeah, because history will just say, okay, OKC lost in the playoffs there, OKC lost in the playoffs there, but when you give it context and you look at losing Westbrook in the playoffs, losing Ibaka in the playoffs, I mean, most people would say those are the top 3 players in the team, Durant, Westbrook, and Ibaka. But losing those guys in back-to-back seasons is just brutal. They don't even have – it's like they're not even going to war with all their guns. You know what I'm saying? It's very devastating, man. It's kind of sad because at the end of the day, I was hoping to get an OKC-Miami final because this rivalry we've been trying to manufacture with LeBron and Durant really isn't a rivalry. You know what I'm saying? They have to meet in the finals and have great series in order for that to come to fruition. And, Tim Duncan is still in the way. Tim Duncan's always in the way of, all this kind of stuff, yo.
Yeah, it's just devastating for them because, we're going to see a lot of Collison. We're going to see a lot of Adams, who I think may be up to the challenge. Kendrick Perkins still ain't shit. But It's just devastating losing your best big man when you're about to go against a team that has, pretty good bigs. That's just devastating. Like, I don't know. You would have needed his athleticism in a Clippers series, but I don't think against the Clippers because of the way their bigs play. Blake Griffin is kind of finesse at times. I don't think it would have been as big of a loss. I think they still would have had a better chance in that series. I really was leaning towards the Thunder because, as of late, the Thunder have basically owned the Spurs. And like we talked about a while ago, like if they can get past this bad matchup with Memphis, I think it's possible that they can, run the table in the Western Conference and get to the finals. And like Frank said, when you have Kevin Durant and you have Russell Westbrook, you still have a shot in any series. But I think earlier today I was leaning towards the Thunder. I think now, because of Ibaka, I think the pendulum has swung a little bit, and I think I'm going to go with the Spurs in 7 too. I think Westbrook and Durant will take it to 7, but I think they might fizzle out unless something devastating happens to the Spurs.
Really quick, I think the big misconception about the Ibaka injury too is it really hurts them offensively. People think of Ibaka as this defensive guy, but offensively, Ibaka spreads the floor, and they don't really have, Adams can't shoot that mid-range shot. We damn know Perkins can't shoot a shot from more than 2 feet away from the rim, and even that's a question mark. But I think offensively,
Perkins slander is crazy today.
Yeah, I told you.
Slanders
Kendrick
himself.
Kendrick Perkins has the Stiviano leak tapes in his locker, and that's on Scott Brooks calling somebody a very offensive word, and that's the only reason why he starts in the league. But And like I said, it's going to hurt him offensively, and like you said, Dev, it's such a close series that I think an Ibaka injury like this could potentially swing that series.
Right. Because originally for me, I think that the Thunder are that bad matchup for the Spurs, just like Memphis was our bad matchup for the Thunder. But I don't know. I mean, they didn't lose one of their two big guns, but they did lose gun number 3, and it could really hurt them. I do think Hustleman Adams will step up and fill the void as much as he possibly can, but it's gonna be difficult. But
the thing that where I thought Jimmy was going with his original point about OKC in the playoffs is that so with these injuries and everything, if it gets to the point where OKC, let's even say they haven't made the finals and Kevin Durant's contract is up in 2 years.
Yeah.
Do you think, I kind of think KD, if they haven't even made the finals in the Western Conference, I kind of think KD's looking at that Eastern Conference like, I can be right.
I mean, that's
even
part
depending
of
where LeBron goes.
True too. I mean, especially when
or he might just go to the Heat.
Especially when you got his own paper slandering and everything.
Just go to the Heat.
But Frank, I was thinking about that because, like, I was just reading the Wilt Chamberlain biography, and when you look at all the crazy small things that happened during the course of his final runs when he kept losing to Russell, it was like, when we look at it now, we say he lost the finals every year, but he had all kinds of crazy stuff like, floods in the arena, and they had to move the games back when his team was on the roll, injuries to starters, all kinds of crazy stuff happening. But when we look at it now or hear the stories, we never hear that. And I could see the same thing kind of happening for Durant. Like, there's a lot of bad breaks with that team. They never go with their full roster in the battle. And, I mean, things happen. That's part of the game. But, it's still sad to see because I would love to see that rivalry. In terms of my pick, in terms of my pick, I would go with the Spurs in 7 as well. Shout out to Tony Parker, because just watching this dude play, like, the way he gets into the lane and controls the tempo of the game is amazing, and his name is never mentioned when we talk about the best point guards because there's so many great point guards in the league right now. Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say Steph Curry is better.
The thing is, he's never mentioned until somebody reminds you of him, and then they start putting him over a lot of people.
Yeah, usually it's him reminding you because they're still playing late in the season.
I've been on record as saying multiple times that besides Chris Paul, I would take Tony Parker over any point guard in the NBA for like a whole season. Maybe ability-wise, he's not the best, most talented, but like in a playoff series, you need to depend on him. I take Tony Parker. I take Chris Paul first, Tony Parker second.
If you need somebody to get to the rack.
You know what I think about when I think about Tony Parker? Not that I think about him, Paul's, no Michael Sam, but I think about Popovich actually benched him a couple years ago for what was it, George Hill? Remember he was
and after they won
George Hill was supposed to be the future.
After they won the first title, they tried to get rid of him for Jason Kidd.
And I'm saying,
respect from his own coach.
No respect. Benched him for George Hill, and that's the reason why George Hill got that bread over in Indiana. So,
all right. Well, shout out to Andy and B. Austin. They couldn't be with us on this episode. B. Austin did text me over his picks, though. I don't know in how many games, but he's picking the Spurs in the Heat to win as well.
Oh, you sellout, B. Austin. You a sellout. You picked the Pacers all season, and here he go.
Yeah, you can kind of understand, though. The Pacers' play of late would make anybody jump.
Absolutely. Paul George would probably pick the Heat.
Andy's even more of a coward because he didn't even text me his picks. He just wants to not be on the record at all. So anytime the team makes the finals, he'll be like, yeah, that's who I picked.
And I picked it in that many games, too. Yep. All right, so look, everybody, as we always let you know before we sign off, make sure you follow the channel. Do that so you know when we're dropping another episode of Court Vision. Make sure you like the video and definitely leave your opinions and your picks in the comment section because we want to hear from you guys as well. Shout out to whoever that was on our last video who said Austin and myself were crazy for picking the Pacers over the Wizards. But, calm down, y'all. It's still just the Wizards. Let them grow. DC Rising was what everybody said.
They had the worst fans I ever seen. And the funny thing is,
game 6.
I'm glad the media picked up on it because they started going on a little bit too. I was like, thank God somebody noticed it.
It was quiet in there.
It sounded like a November regular season game.
Yeah. Could you imagine if that was Philadelphia at a game 6 and a chance to go to the? Come on, man.
So DC, like, you know, you got a nice young team that is rising, but y'all got to rise with them. Like, y'all just can't, you know, leave them hanging like that in an elimination.
You got to pull like a Sacramento Kings fan and just start like food poisoning like the best player and all that stuff. You got to get in there. You got to be participating.
Cowbells.
That's because that's really a Redskins. That was the Redskins playing for to go to the NFC Championship. Right. Yo, there would have been fans everywhere. There would have been a couple murders. There would have been all kinds of stuff.
The arena literally would have been bursting at the seams, like people falling out of the arena because they couldn't hold all the people. But yeah, this has been another episode of Court Vision. For Frank and Jimmy, I'm Dev of War Room Sports. Make sure you go check out sports-kings.com and check out warroomsports.com. Yes, also get that mobile app. Like we always tell you guys, don't accept mediocrity and be steadfast in the war against ignorance.
We'll see you chumps on top. Shout out to Big. Rest in peace.
Kuwait is the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys diversified and educated.